Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. The topic which we are going to start today is bounds. This is also a chapter from the IGCSE syllabus only. Bounds. So first of all, let us understand what does it mean. What is the meaning of the word bounds? All the numbers are written to a different degree of accuracy. Some are written to the nearest tens, hundreds, thousands. Suppose if I say 4.5, 4.5 can be written as 4.5, 4.50, 4.500. It seems that it is the same number, but it is not like that. Similarly, what are bounds? Bounds are defining a limit or a range. So whenever you have an answer, the answer is supposed to be in a certain range, right? So bound defines a limit or a range of values within which the number or the answer falls. So when we talk about the range, there are two things that comes into our mind. First one is minimum and the other one is maximum. As bounds tells us about minimum and maximum, right? So minimum is known as lower bound and maximum is upper bound. So when bounds come into our mind, we have to find out the lower bound and the upper bound of the given number. Now that depends upon the instruction given, whether you have to find the upper bound and the lower bound depending upon the tens, hundreds, decimal places or any which ways. So now there are certain steps to be followed to find the lower bound and upper bound. So the steps, important steps to follow: first, we need to find the place value to which the bound is to be found. Bound is to be found. That means first we need to know that what is the question asking us, to which place value we have to find the bounds for. After we know the place value, we divide that place value by 2. And then when you subtract the answer which you get here, when you subtract it from the given number, you get the lower bound, and when you add it to the number, the given number, you get the upper bound. So we have to follow these 4 steps and we will be able to find out the lower bound and the upper bounds of any number given to the approximate value. Okay, so now let's take up one example. First example, 6.4. They are telling us to find bounds up to 1 dp. Okay, so first, as I told you, find the place value to which the bound is to be found. So now do we know the place value for which we have to find the bounds? It's first dp, 1 dp. Okay, then what do we have to do? Divide by 2. That means what is the place value of this number? So we will write the place value first. The place value of this number will be 0.1. 1 by 10, right? So it is 0.1. Okay. And then we will divide this. The second step, we will divide 0.1 by 2. So what do we get? 0.05. Second point also done. Now we will subtract it from the given number. What is the given number? 6.4 minus 0.05. So what do I get? 6.35. So this is my lower bound. Third step also done. Now the fourth one, we add. So 6.4 plus 0.05. So this will become 6.45. So this becomes the upper bound. So now we found out the lower bound and upper bound for 6.4 up to 1 dp as told in the question. Now there is a specific way of writing the bounds also, because it's not equal. 6.35 and 6.4 and 6.45 all are not equal. So how do we write it? It is 6.4 is lying in the range of 6.35 and 6.45. So we take this number as x, and how do we write? 6.35 less than equal to x less than 6.45. This is the way of writing the bounds as a sign of inequality. So this is the way of writing the bounds, and these are the steps through which you can find out bounds. Let's take up one more example so that you understand better. So now this time we will take up a number which is having 2 decimal places. So 6.32. Now we have to find up bounds up to 2 dp. Okay, 2 dp. So now we need to know the place value. So what is the place value of this? 0.01, right? That is 1 upon 100. When taken in decimal is 0.01, right? Now next step, 0.01 will be divided by 2. So what do we get? 0.005. Now the third step we will do, we will subtract this from the given number. 6.32 minus 0.005 will give us 6.315. So we got our lower bound. Now we will add the same number to find the upper bound. So we got 6.325, and this is the upper bound. And I also told you how to write it. So we write it as 6.315 less than equal to x less than 6.325. So the 4 steps followed, and we write the bounds like this. Okay, let's take one more last example. One example which doesn't have a decimal point. Okay, the number is 4225. We have to find the bounds of this number up to the nearest hundreds. Nearest hundreds means this place value, hundreds. So first we need to know the place value. What is the place value? 100. Then the second step, as I told you, we will divide 100 by 2. So what do we get? 50. Now the third step, we will subtract 50 from the given number. 4225 minus 50. So what do I get? 4175. And the final step, 4225 plus 50. If I do, I get 4275. So this is my lower bound and this is my upper bound. How do I write it? 4175 less than equal to x less than 4275. So this was the final example for finding the bounds, because after this we need to also do calculations using these bounds. First we need to find the bounds of numbers, and then we need to perform certain arithmetic calculations on those numbers also. Okay, I hope this is clear how to find out bounds. One more thing, there is a very easy trick also to remember what to subtract and what to add. When they tell you find the correct bounds up to 2 dp. So just check how many zeros are there here. 2 and 2 dp. That means whatever dp is mentioned, those many zeros will be there after the decimal point. Like in the previous question when we were doing, we had 1 dp, so we had 1 0. Here we have 2 dp, we have 2 zeros. So this is an easy trick to remember, just an easy trick so that you don't make a mistake. Now next, after finding out bounds, as I told you, we also have to perform some calculations with the bounds. So what are those calculations? Basic calculations which we've been studying from when we were small. Okay, so now those calculations, as we know, the basic calculations: plus, addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Okay, so we also have to perform arithmetic calculations on these numbers after finding out their bounds. First, we need to understand what we have to do in all these calculations. Okay, so first let's talk about addition. In addition, how do we find? If there are two numbers given, suppose a and b, So we find the lower bound and upper bound for both the numbers, and when we have to add a plus b, we add the lower bound plus lower bound of a and lower bound of b. Similarly, to find the upper bound, I will add upper bound of a plus upper bound of b. But in subtraction, it is not the same numbers we are taking, a and b. If we have to find the lower bound, what do? We take the lower bound of a minus upper bound of b. Similarly, to find the upper bound, I will take upper bound of a minus lower bound of b. And the multiplication works exactly similar to the addition. That means lower bound of a into lower bound of b and upper bound of a into upper bound of b. And division works exactly as subtraction. That is lower bound of a divided by upper bound of b and upper bound of a divided by lower bound of b. If you remember these, how to calculate this, you can solve any question very easily. Always remember addition and multiplication. In these we use lower and lower, upper and upper. Whereas in subtraction and division we don't do that. Here we take lower minus upper, upper minus lower. Similarly, lower divided by upper and upper divided by lower. Now this is what is to be done. Now let's do this with the help of one example so that we understand it much better. So let's take up a number 4.7 plus 2.2. We have to find the lower bounds and upper bounds of this, but up to 1 dp. So you don't actually have to add them. First you have to find the lower bound and upper bound of the first number, then the second number, and then we have to find the lower bound of the addition and upper bound of the addition. So first let's find out the lower bound of 4.7. As I told you, 1 dp, that means we find the place value. Place value is 0.1, right? So when you divide 0.1 by 2, what do you get? 0.05. Okay. So now we have to subtract 0.05 from 4.7. So what do I get? 4.65. So this becomes my lower bound, and 4.75. When I add 0.05, it becomes 4.75. This becomes my upper bound. Similarly, for 2.2, again we will subtract 0.05 from 2.2 so that we get the lower bound. So what is the lower bound? 2.15 is the lower bound and 2.25 is the upper bound. Now the lower bound and upper bound for both the numbers are ready. As I told you, in addition we add the lower bounds together and we get the lower bound of the addition, and we add the upper bound together and we get the upper bound of the addition. So here to find out 4.7, so we find out the lower bound of 4.7 plus 2.2, we add the lower bound of the numbers 4.65 plus 2.15. So what do I get? 6.75. And to find the upper bound of the same addition, we add the upper bound, that is 4.75 plus 2.25. And what do you get? 7.00. So this is the lower bound of this addition and this is the upper bound. Okay. Now we can similarly solve subtraction also. Now as I said, the lower bounds and upper bounds are already ready. Just this sign is to be changed. So if I take 4.7 minus, if I subtract it, 4.7 minus 2.2, instead of addition, if I take subtraction, I have the lower bound and upper bound of both the numbers ready. But to find the lower bound of 4.7 minus 2.2, I will not subtract lower bound minus lower bound. What will I do? I will do 4.65 minus the upper bound of the second number. Okay. So we get 2.40, and to find the upper bound of the calculation 4.7 minus 2.2, we will take the upper bound, that is 4.75 of the first number, and then we subtract 2.15 from it. So what do we get? 2.60. So now this is the lower bound and this is the upper bound of the subtraction. So this is 2.40 and 2.60. Okay. Similarly, we can also solve multiplication and division. Instead of this addition, you put multiplication and you can multiply the two numbers and write the answer here, and multiply the upper bound and write the answer here. Similarly, for division, instead of this subtraction, you use the division and divide and write the answers here. So method is the same, just you need to understand when you have to do lower bound plus lower bound and lower bound into lower bound, and when you have to take lower bound and upper bound. Okay, so that's it for today. This is all with the bounds, how to find out the bounds. I hope you all understood how we find out the bounds of decimal numbers, whole numbers, numbers without decimal. Also, we did the calculations with the bounds. If any doubts or queries, please comment below. I will give the answers as soon as possible. Now let's take up a question as I give. Just solve and give the answer in the comment section. Do this with addition and subtraction both and give the answer. So please comment the answer down. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.